presentation. Now, I would like to just say thank you to Gary because he's already been
I've been what?
He's already been all around the ship doing all different presentations and running all different activities for you guys. So thank you so much, Gary, for doing all of that. And of course, just a reminder, this is a part of your celebrity activities. And actually tomorrow there's going to be 2 presentations. And this afternoon also you can join Gary in the afternoon in Eden at 2 o'clock for his 2nd round of science trivia. So whatever you've learned during the cruise already with Gary, you can test that knowledge this afternoon in Eden. So that's about it. Now talking about English, please put your hands together for your big on the podium speaker, Gary Kramer.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let's poke fun at the English language. My first slide, of course, is a humorous offering. I didn't know you could sell a language. You'll have to be quicker than that, dear. You're on the next slide. When we met, when she gets here at snail pace, she couldn't speak English. So my wife, whose first language is Russian, knows all about English being difficult. That being said, her language has 27 endings and 3 genders. Doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. All right, enough of that. Let's look at how language spread. Starting about 6000 BC, coming up to 2000 AD, this is one theory about how language has spread. And diverged into the different languages, the different roots of languages we have today. Our language, English, is Germanic. If you were looking into the United Kingdom, you'll notice Celtic got pushed over to the west, replaced by English. In a similar vein, we can look at different tree structure over on the left that shows the evolution of language, and over on the right, we're seeing how the present day distribution of those roots are distributed across Europe. And as I said earlier, English is a Germanic root, which is why United Kingdom looks mostly red in that picture over on the right. So that's the evolution of language. But what about English in particular? English is a conglomeration of a number of different languages that have come together. We have borrowed words from a number of different ones, as you can see in the graphic right up at the top. And the English of the olden times is nothing like the English of today. In fact, we'll look at that in just a second, and I'll play it for you so you can see what it would be like. If you want to time travel and be able to speak to people in the past, then you're going to have to know what the Old and Middle English was. This is Beowulf, one of the oldest pieces of written English. It's over on the right here, some text on the right. And what does it sound like? Because you understand any of this. Obviously you can see from the text, you can't really see anything that resembles something that's meaningful to you.
Jag vet that Nelsian syta nicht bekom herrn huses, who hit pringdena after berthea je bun hafton. Fan fa there inne atalinga je dricht swefan efter symbol. Sorgene kuthan woncheft wera.
You all got that, right? Let's move on. Let's move on to Middle English, what we associate with Chaucer. And I've given you an example up there of what text would look like with a translation underneath it. Of course, the spelling was very different in those days. And again, what did that sound like?
That han hath holpen one that they were sega. Juan that upward with his shod is softa. The drocht of March hath passed to the rotta. And bad that are revine in sweet liquor. Of which virtue engendered is the fleur. Juan's a fair is ache, with the sweat to breathe.
Clear as mud, right? Did you get anything? Anyone? There was one or two words in there that I could pick up, but then I've heard it before. Then we move to Modern English, and Modern English starts around 1550 and goes onwards. Shakespeare is actually Modern English. And let's have a listen to Shakespeare.
Their first example comes from Henry V, then gives the modern pronunciation, and David the OP.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention.
A kingdom for a stage, princes to act and monarchs to behold the swelling scene.
A kingdom for a stage, princes to act and monarchs to behold the swelling scene.
Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars.
Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars.
And
So you can see, even though the words are very understandable when you read it, although some of the letters change a little bit, the pronunciation, the accent on Shakespearean English is very different from the accent that we associate with those words today. That's because of the vowel shift, which I'll talk about in a minute, and that really changed the sound of English quite dramatically. And then, of course, slightly tongue-in-cheek, we have Pidgin English. Prince of Wales, now King Charles, is actually making a speech in Pidgin English.
Na Olgeta house, line belong Neil on this fella, time belong Diamond Jubilee belong Mrs. Quinn.
Did we all understand that? No, well that's current today, that's a dialect today. So if you went back in time, could you understand any English? Well, probably no earlier than about 1485. You've got to go back to where we have the modern English period. Any earlier than that, Middle English or Old English, you're completely lost. You just won't understand anything. So anything that you see with time travel and they go back into this, they always miss this part. Everybody can speak to everybody else, just doesn't happen.
Then a quine grana waxed daily greater and greater. So it befell, after within half a year, as king with the lie, he is quine, he asked head, with the five,
She's reading the text on the screen. The translation's on the left.
Then she assorted a basket to Yeva, answer, dismaya yan note, side of the king. But tell me the
I think you're getting the idea. One of the problems with English is, of course, the spelling. The spelling became fixed, but the accent, due to the vowel shift, changed the way we pronounce things. And I'll be exemplifying this as we move forward with some particular words. There is one example up on the screen there, thought. You see the different spellings for thought. And of course it would have been pronounced not the way I'm saying it right now. Thought would have been pronounced very differently. And I'm not going to attempt to do it. We have a number of different vowel sounds available to us, about 19. We have 24 consonants in our language, and we have 3 levels of stress. This is how we put all our things together. Other languages have different levels of stress, they have different consonants, and they have different vowel sounds. My wife, whose first language is Russian, there's some letters that she's got in Russian I just cannot pronounce. It's too difficult for me. You have to get your tongue in a particular shape. So when we grow up and we learn our language, it's worth bearing in mind that other people learn it in a very different way. If you're familiar with any of the African languages, some of them have a click sound in there, which again is not something I can do. All right, let's go and have some fun with some accents around the United Kingdom. Let's begin with Cockney.
What's your me old China place here about doing a bit of graft in the States? But what a culture shock I had with the old nose bag. How can you have your 11s without a nice cup of rosy lead?
And the point is not to listen to what they're saying necessarily, it's how they're saying it, the different accents that you'll hear as we move around. The next one is Cornwall, the West Country.
I'm John Manalek. I farmed all my life. I read somewhere that there's a lot of different names for the runt of the litter pigs right through the country, because that means he's usually the last one to be born, and the wee is always smaller.
Let's go to
First time he
Wales.
was arrested, he convinced the court and the judge that he was a member of MI6. DEA caught up with him and
It's a very
extradited him
sing-song
from
accent,
Spain
almost
and
like a Hills in
sentenced him
Wales.
to 25 years in high security American prison. However, he was released after 10 years because
Hello, it's quite late on Sunday. I was away all day and then I just remembered I had to make this Collab Type People video. So I'm not going to edit it, so that'll take like an hour off the whole process of making the video, and that'll be really helpful. So I hope you don't mind. This video is probably not going to be good because it's basically like you're having a conversation with me, except
I'm like any fan, you get excited, think who you might bring in, and you know, being involved just because you're the player.
Blackpool, not to be confused with Liverpool, different place.
So you've signed someone, but I think this summer's been a bit of speculation about maybe players moving on. So at the moment, I'm just hoping that that doesn't happen now when people come in, because I think we've got a great sign,
Hello, Owen. How are you? Very well, and yourself?
No, but middling. I don't like this cold weather. What I brought for this morning, you seem to have a fairly labour stuff.
Yeah, well, there's variety in there.
This feels like a bake. Ah, well, that's let you up me and see it, aren't I? Anyhow, I'm middling a while.
And before the advent of the motorways and the big road system in England, Wales and Scotland, the whole of the United Kingdom, it is said that if you had a trained ear, you could tell exactly what village somebody came from simply by listening to their accent. This is smeared out somewhat. And this map actually is showing you accents across the United Kingdom. They're color-coded.
We Buggermore. We am a Geordie. Indeed I am. Now me mother, it's me old dog, maybe me old girl. We'll call her mother-in-law, or even me mum. It's father or dad, at times me old man.
And they are all speaking English, okay?
We also have the worst national instrument in the world, the bagpipes. The missing link between noise and sound. When the great cultural cake was being split up, we got the last slice there, didn't we? You think about the great evolution.
We moved to the other side of Scotland, and I can tell you, I was in Glasgow some time ago in a fish and chip shop, and there were two guys talking to each other, and I didn't understand a word they said.
And you can figure them out for yourself. What you want me doing, what you got to do with yours. Do you want to use that, you know? Do you want to use on this? And it's just on the right hand side. See if you go there, slowly on the right hand side. You show up, just open the same.
I can see some of you didn't understand that either, did you? No, Glasgow is a pretty strong accent.
My Lord Mayor, when I was 21, I pledged my life to the service of our people, and I asked for God's help to make good that vow. Although that vow was made in my salad days when I was green in judgment, I do not regret nor retract one word of it.
And of course that was the Queen, late Queen Elizabeth II, and that's, if you like, the gold standard of how we should be speaking, but we do not. After I had been giving this talk for some time, it was brought to my attention that there was yet another accent that I should be showing you or talking to you about, and this is estuary. An estuary is a mixture, a slide from Cockney over towards real pronunciation, Queen's English, and estuary sounds like this.
Because I've got 26 people coming around, and I've got to do it. I tried a few years where I get a couple of chefs in, but it didn't work really. I don't know. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the coconut buns with the sort of hoisin chicken and all the lovely steamed ribs. Really fun. I mean, for anyone that works in the public eye, you have this relationship with the public where they know it.
Most of my relatives in England sound like that, actually. Cockney, which you heard in the very beginning, it's really a person that was born in a very special part of London. They had to be within the sounds of the bells of the churches shown up there. And the rhyming slang that Cockney developed into was actually a secret language to be able to, for them to communicate in front of people that didn't necessarily have any business in knowing what these people were doing. So these are some examples of the rhyming slang in Cockney. It's much larger than that, of course. Some of you may know what these phrases are. Anybody know what some of those phrases are? You see a couple of hands, and for those of you that don't, those are the translations. And as I said, the purpose was for them to be able to communicate in front of others in public without somebody else knowing what they were talking about. Scotland, they have a number of dialects up there. I've only shown you two. There's some text up there which I will attempt to read to you in a sort of Scottish accent. And it says, travelling down the wind, I clocked a bonny lassie kicking in the shop window. And what he's saying, of course, is walking down the street, I saw a pretty lady looking in the shop window. Irish, they don't often pronounce the TH, as demonstrated in that sentence up there. So do you see the turty tree and the trees over there? That's right. They also don't say yes or no very often, as exemplified by that statement there. So when it comes to the yes or no game on these ships, they do very well, because they don't say yes or no in the same way that we do. And again, in saying hello, they have different phrases that I've listed up on the slide. I'm not necessarily going to be reading anything that you see on slides. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Your job is to multitask. The ladies will do very well. The gentlemen will have difficulty. My wife keeps telling me that I'm no good at multitasking. Then, of course, have we seen this film? There's this famous section in there where Brad Pitt speaks Pikey, which is a derogative term for the dialect that travellers use, Romanis use. It's also a prison language. This is what it sounds like.
Can I save you about for killing your pies? Look, so it's heck 2 roof lights. The sound sauce for furniture, and the scorer cushions with the matching check by corner. Okay. Right. It's a terrible pass to the pattern with the blue bags. Have a minute, sir, clear bags.
Yeah, that's perfectly clear, Nicky, yeah. Just give me 1 minute to confer with my colleague. Did you understand a single word?
And actually, it wasn't gibberish. That's what he said. Just give you a second to look that over. And yes, of course, it's a dialect with some slang in there. Those of us that speak English, that are English, don't necessarily mean what we say. Here's some examples. I'm guilty of doing some of these. I'm not going to read them all. Quite good. What we really mean is it's a bit disappointing. What foreigners understand is it was quite good. Completely the opposite. With the greatest respect. You're an idiot. But what they think is something else. Here's some more. That's very interesting. It's clearly nonsense. But they think we're impressed when we say that. I'm sure it's my fault. No, we mean it's your fault. they think, why do they think it was their fault? Because they know it's their fault, right? Here's some other examples. That second one, bane of my existence when I was writing papers. I only have a few minor comments and there's red ink all over my manuscript. Please rewrite it completely, yes. I ran into that one. The one at the bottom, I've run into so many times back in England when I used to live in England. You must come for dinner. It's not an invitation, they're just being polite. Whereas you are waiting for that invitation to go for dinner. You're never going to get it. Okay? So if an English person says to you in English, you must come for dinner, don't expect an invitation anytime soon. Not happening. There's some differences in the language. I've listed a few up here between American, British, Australian and South African. So cast your eyes over that one. I just highlight one that does confuse some people sometimes. The restroom is the toilet or the loo to British people and Australian people, and they have yet another word for it, which is dunny. But South Africans, they use both. So a washroom is another one that would suffice to be confusing in certain circumstances. Zip code, postal code, postal code, postal code, and other examples up there. It gets more fun when we get to parts of cars. So the bonnet is the hood, English versus American. Zebra crossing is a crosswalk, cat's eyes, reflectors, and so on and so forth. So English on the left, American on the right. Here's some more examples of American and English looking at cars. I still say petrol to this day. I don't say gas or gasoline. When we're driving down to Florida, which we do a lot, I'll say to my wife, got to get some fuel. Find me a petrol station. Still doing that. I particularly like BP for some reason. It used to be British Petroleum, but I now view it as supporting the insects. That's a language joke. Okay. We are also guilty of the understatement. But we're not alone in the understatement. Let me show you some examples of some famous understatement. I particularly like the next one. The war in the Pacific has not necessarily developed in Japan's favor. Yeah, I'll say so, with 2 A-bombs dropped on your country. And that was the surrender in World War II. Very famous understatement here. I'm sure you're all familiar with this one. Houston, we've had a problem. Yeah, my spaceship blew up. Not sure what to do now. This is a very sad one if you're familiar with Scott's expedition in the Antarctic. This is Captain Oates. And he sacrifices himself to try and keep his colleagues alive. And the last words, as recorded by Scott, is, I'm just going outside and maybe some time. And he goes out into the blizzard and commits suicide by leaving his companions behind. Another understatement. He was on the Titanic. Let's look at some words. You might be familiar with the fact that English words have different meanings. We use the same word, but it's got a different meaning. How many different meanings do some words have? These are the record holders. Just look at the numbers up there. That's amazing. Now, one of them actually leaped into the lead some time ago, and that's this one. Run now has 645 different definitions. And as you're sitting there, I'm sure you can figure a few out, but the 645 is going to drive you nuts trying to figure out what all of those definitions are. Then, of course, we've got the sounds and spelling of words. And of course, I do have to read these out for you to understand what I'm talking about. The bandage was wound around the wound. Same spelling, totally different pronunciation. We must polish the Polish furniture. The soldier decided to desert his dessert in the desert. And finally, since there is no time like the present, he thought it was time to present the present. Here's a few more. I'm not going to read all of those read all of those out. I'll just go to the last bullet. I did not object to the object. Don't we have fun with our own language? Q. 4 silent letters. Q. Why do we put 4 letters after Q? We could just write the letter Q, right? Means a lineup, of course, in case you don't know. Interesting thought for you to figure out. You can have a good dinner conversation over this. Which one's silent? Is it the S or the C in scent? And then, of course, Kansas and Arkansas. Why isn't it Arkansas? That's right, there is no egg in eggplant. That is because in English, we don't call it an eggplant. We use the word aubergine, which is the French word. So we don't have this problem in English. It's only in American that you have this problem. The Americans call it an eggplant. Aubergine. How about pineapples? No apples, and has nothing to do with pine trees. I know my house is surrounded by pine trees and I don't find any pineapples there, ever. None at all. Places. The English muffin was not developed in England. It was in New York. French fries, probably in Spain, although there's some lesser thought that maybe Belgium and actually France. But French fries, no, not really France. And then, of course, there's the guinea pig. Doesn't come from Guinea, it comes from the Andes. And it's not a pig, it's a rodent. Guinea pig. Go figure. Gets worse. Look at some opposites here. Quicksand. No, it isn't. Slow. You don't go right down the bottom. And the boxing ring. No, it's square, and so on and so forth. How about pretty ugly? Think about that one. Pretty ugly. And some others up there that I've put there. Plurals. They don't make much sense either. We say a tooth and we say teeth, but when it comes to booths, we don't say beef. We have a goose and we have 2 geese, but we have 1 moose, no meese. Datum is a single data point. Everybody gets this wrong. Data is plural. And then there's louse and lice, but not house and heis. We say houses. Why don't we say louses instead of lice? But we do. And then we have some very special words for congregations of animals. And I've listed some up there. Quite recently we saw a flamboyance of flamingos when we were in Cartagena. A little herd of, I call them a herd for the lack of a better word. A little herd came round the corner to us, and I was trying to remember what the name for a group of flamingos was, and I couldn't remember it, and it's a flamboyance. And for those of you who ever want to go and find a group of unicorns, it's called a blessing of unicorns. Good luck with that one, though. Crash of rhinos, that seems to be very appropriate, doesn't it? And a coalition of cheetahs on the bottom. So they've all got their own plurals. The murder of crows. Tenses. How many tenses do we have in the English language? Linguists will say there are 2, past and present. And they're basing that on the structure of the verb itself. Because when you go to other tenses in the English language, the way we express those other tenses is by using other words to qualify the verb. And I'll show you some examples as we go forward. So here's some tenses. Present, past, future, future in the past, continuous or indefinite, or perfect continuous, and then you can say both of those in the active or passive voice. And if you're looking at some of the wording up there, you'll see what I mean. Other words are used to qualify the verb to be able to construct that particular tense. And it can get really quite complicated. We don't often use these complicated constructions, but you can construct some pretty awful ones. Here's another example, and this one I will read out to you, because this is just a horrendous construction, but it is good grammar. If he had lived, he would have been going to have been told that the building will have been being built for over a decade. Believe it or not, that's proper grammar. Here's some examples of tenses, and it's related to the time frame that you're referring to.
Hey, very good morning to you all. This is your captain from the bridge with your 9:45 update on navigation and weather information. Our current position finds us at 20 degrees, 34 minutes north, 067 degrees, 10 minutes west, which honestly means very little to most people, so we will just say that Celebrity Beyond is approximately 130 nautical miles from the Dominican Republic. We are making a speed of 18.5 knots, that's around 21.3 miles per hour, and we have 5,270 meters, which is 17,290 feet under the ship's keel. Weather forecast for today calls for partly sunny skies. There is a 52.3% chance of showers, according to our amazing First Officer Charlotte from New Zealand. And we have the winds out of the southeast up to 20 knots. Moderate seas, 2 to 3 meters or 6 to 9 feet. And a beautiful sunset should be happening tonight at 6:25. And speaking of the weather, did you know that whilst a black cat seen on shore may be considered unlucky, sailors considered the sight of a black cat on board a ship to bring good luck? Cats would eat rodents and other pests that could chew away on the ropes, and they would also create a sense of home for sea captains spending significant time at sea. It was believed that cats also had mystical weather powers that could predict a ship in adverse conditions. However, some believe that this could also result in a number of consequences. If a cat licked its fur, for example, it would mean a hailstorm was coming. If the cat sneezed, rain was on the way, and if it fell overboard, the ship would endure a terrible storm. We do have a bit of weather insurance because I have my hairless cat, Bug, on board with me at all times. She has a pretty wicked following on social media as well, at Bug Naked, that's BUGNAKED, and more guests request to see Bug than to meet the captain, and tomorrow will be your chance with Bug Trivia, and don't worry, I will remind you tomorrow. Now, keeping in mind that tonight is evening chic, this morning's nugget of nautical knowledge is regarding the origin of the phrase, dressed to the nines. Back in the day, to celebrate victories, a returning ship would approach her home port waters or port dressed in bunting and flags. As many of the crew as possible would line up on the 9 primary yards as a salute to their monarch, and today the expression is often used to describe a person who is dressed in fancy clothing. And now it is riddle time. The last riddle I asked is, how do you spell candy with 2 letters? Easy. C and Y. It'll come to you. For today's riddle, what 5-letter word typed in all capital letters can be read the same upside down? I'll let you know tomorrow. And with that, I leave you with today's wise words from my mom. She says, no matter how far you push the envelope, it's still stationary. This is your captain from the bridge, hoping your day is beyond and now the amazing, the fantastic, the incredibly awesome cruise director, Shauna.
Thank you, Captain. A very good morning, Celebrity Beyond. Shauna, your cruise director here. A voice from above. Welcome to a day at sea, recharge, rejuvenate, and I'm here to tell you what's up, what's happening, what's not to be missed. So let's start at 10:30 when I'm going to be up on the rooftop doing your morning Zumba class. Zumba is for everybody and everybody. So if you'd like to join us, doesn't matter if you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, we're just burning those calories with a bit of Zumba. At 11:15, for anyone that likes to think outside the box, likes riddles, mind games, and puzzles, or escape rooms, we have your escape room style experience called Artist Reveal. That's at 11:15 in the club. Do be on time. It is a timed event. For anyone that loves shopping and loves sparkles, I am in that club. We have the Effie Jewelry Designer Select Showcase. That, of course, is happening in Effie at 11:30. Be in the know about all those sparkles. And then at 12:15, our version of the Amazing Race, just like you see on television, except here on board a cruise ship. Will you be water skiing off the back? Maybe. Let's see. So like I said, this is going to be clues to decipher that are going to lead you all around the ship. There's going to be roadblocks to be completed, tasks that will be completed in order to get your next clue, and so on and so forth. It's just like the Amazing Race you see on television, except here on board. You can play in teams of 1 to 3 people. That's all happening in the club at 12:15. And also at 12:15, your grand finale art auction with our art auction team. Bubbles will be flowing and the art will be going. That is in Destination Gateway, deck number 2. If you've never seen an art auction at sea, check it out. At 1 p.m., we will transform our club into the golf club. That's right, come check out our golf simulator and our putting green. And then at 2 p.m., we have Deal or No Deal, your buy-in game show. Just like seen on television, a matinee game show. We do not have Howie Mandel, but we have your activity manager, Mark. So you can buy those cards in the casino from 11:30 all the way until 1:30. Bring those cards to the game at 2 p.m. and you could walk away with $5,000 or a free cruise. At 3 p.m. in the Grand Plaza vicinity, which is your martini bar, we have another helping of musical bingo. Is it music trivia? Is it bingo? It's both. It's musical bingo. And then at 3 p.m., our Beyond the Podium speaker, Michael Green, part of your celebrity activities team, he's going to be telling you how to buy wine like a pro. And of course, that will be inside the club. Let's talk about tonight, because tonight in the theater, 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock, we have Tommy Green Jr. He is your headliner tonight. Tommy is a vocalist, a multi-instrumentalist. He will be backed by the Beyond Orchestra. He is comedy, he is storytelling, he is sing-along, something for everyone. He lives down the street from me, actually. This is a great show that I could not recommend higher, so make sure you're there for it. All your favorite songs, the classics, you'll be singing along, you'll be laughing along, enjoy his stories. He is a true entertainer. And then for you late night party goers, we have Silent Disco Battle of the DJs. You cannot miss this. Will be in the Grand Plaza, or at 10 p.m. our version of live band karaoke. Of course, that is just the beginning. So much going on throughout the day. Check your Celebrity Today program. Check the Celebrity app. Remember to refresh. Scroll to the top, pull down. You'll see the X loading, and you'll know you have the most up-to-date information. As for me, I will see you everywhere around the Beyond. This is Shawnee, your cruise director. Bye for now.
I just want to bring your attention to I am eating can mean right now, and I am eating can be out into the future. Same construction. You can have 2 different times associated with that. But I'm sure you've now studied that slide to death, and we can move on to some oddities. We ship by road, we send cargo by ship. A slim chance is a fat chance, really. And a wise man is not a wise guy. And some other ones up there too. A house burns down while it burns up. You fill in a form by filling it out. Alarms go off by going on. And you can drink a drink, but not food a food. There's lots of examples of this. This one, I'll let you read for yourself, a wonderful mistake that was made some years ago. Obviously didn't quite figure out what bondage meant, but never mind. Well done, Dan. Thank you very much. Some interesting maps concerning the USA. What we're looking at here is accents across the USA. They're broken down into various regions. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the accents in the USA. You may not have known there were so many, but there are indeed, and if you're a linguist, you can tell where people come from. Some more maps. How do you pronounce cot and court? Is it the same or is it different? Where it's red, they pronounce them differently. Where it's blue, they pronounce them the same. It's the same word. You have to listen to the context. Here's another one. What do you call the end of a loaf of bread? It's either the heel, the end, the crust, or other, and it's color-coded, but most of the country seems to call it heel there. Another one, the thing you drink water from. It's either a water fountain, a drinking fountain, or a bubbler, again color-coded, which you can see there. This all comes out of a dissertation. Credit is given down the bottom there, North Carolina State University. A traffic circle, a roundabout, other, or I have no word for it because of course the roads are only straight there, where it's yellow, which is up in the northern states, near the Canadian border, call it a roundabout. How do you pronounce Mary, Merry, and Marry? And where it's red, they're all the same. They're pronounced the same way, and the other colors show you where they're pronounced differently. And finally, what words do you use to address a group of people? So it's either you guys, you all, or you all. Again, color-coded, and you can see what parts of the country they use that expression. What about the world? We'll quickly go around the world listening to some accents. But first of all, how many people do speak English? We've now got about 8 billion people on the planet, and about 20% of them can understand the English language to some degree or another. You'll find English spoken in about 88 countries to different levels of familiarity. This is where you'll find English spoken either in an Anglosphere or as a co-official minority language. But of course, where it's grey, you will of course find English speakers, but that's the countries that predominantly do speak English around the world. So, some more accents as we go, and I'll go through this fairly quickly.
Okay, hi. So yesterday I was chatting on Skype with a friend from New York, and I know there's a lot of differences in every country has their own language, and even like English-speaking languages have their own takes on particular words and phrases. But it wasn't until my friend and I were discussing.
That was Australia. New Zealand.
New Zealanders don't really accentuate the R either, so spa is the same as spa, even though they're different. Same thing with bar.
Now we'll move over.
Yo, this is Shot to See coming to you, hitting you with another joke.
British
Look at this Guyanese and this train, we live next to one another, you understand? And the train man always opening the Guyanese man fence and pushing forward through to the forward.
Good day. I'm Bob McKenzie, this is my brother Doug. How's it going, eh? And today's topic, what was it?
Yes, in Canada, some people sound like that. And I lived in an area where they did, called the Ottawa Valley.
It's Canadian beer, right? And like, here's a regular top, and you open it, right? But American ones.
Oh, hi. My name is Mary.
New York.
43. And I was born in Brooklyn, Canarsie, Brooklyn. I remember.
You know, it was just unreal. We didn't know what had happened. I thought something had exploded over here in the corner. Sounded like a bomb went off. All I hear was just the big boom.
Big old eye about this big, laying in the floor all the way back up there.
Anybody understand that apart from this lady here who comes from there? Back in the Caribbean.
You don't know me name long time already. You can't put me name on the internet, girl. What's wrong with you? We come from Jamaica. We come from the western part of Jamaica. We can't really tell you where we come from down there though. We don't even know where we come from.
South Africa is a rather big country. It's about the size of Texas.
South Africa?
Is quite a large state. And it's more diverse than Texas. I haven't really been to Texas, so I can't validate that for you, but it's more diverse. We had Dutch East Indian Company rock up here and trade spices with the rest.
India.
Perhaps as English as a fourth or even a fifth language. Because in India it's very common for people to be bilingual, trilingual, or multilinguality is very common.
It's actually used as a common language in India because they have lots of different languages in India and lots of different dialects, but the common one in India is English. So you'll find a lot of English speakers in India.
I'm seeing that some people are trying to imitate the Chinese or Cantonese accent on YouTube. So today, I want to let you know how the real Cantonese accent sounds like. I was born in Hong Kong and I grew up in Hong Kong, so I know about it. Anyway,
That one's self-explanatory. We are losing dialects. So this is one example of a dialect that has now gone about 11 years ago. He's speaking with his brother in this sound clip.
before the school when they went in, and I took the time before the school, and then I could I said, magazine out. I said, well, what I'm doing here. So
And when he died, that dialect went with him. It was in Scotland, the Black Isle. Technology is changing our language too. Use of phones, use of acronyms to mean things, LOL, OMG, ROFL. I'm sure you're all familiar with these things now, and these things creep into our speech. There's another aspect. This is for North America, the USA really. These are vocal bursts. These are sounds that you can add to the speech that you're using to add emotion to what you're saying, and a number of them have been identified. This is only, as I said, for North America. Other countries don't necessarily do this in the same way, but you can see all the different emotions that can be put into the way you're saying something, even if the words don't necessarily match what the vocal burst is. You're conveying meaning just by the sound of how you say it. Then I've got that wonderful phrase up there. So do look at that, the spelling. As I read out, I plow on thoroughly through the rough, although I cough and hiccup. Well, where are some of those letters that I just pronounced in that spelling? And then there's the famous I before E rule that drives my wife right through the roof, because there are 923 words that break that rule and only 44 that follow it. Why do we have a rule like that? God only knows. Anyway, that brings me to the end of poking fun at our own language. I hope to see some of you at Science Trivia and Eden this afternoon. Thank you.